Hello everyone, this is Charlie and I'm back again with the tutorial, and this time I'm making these earrings. They are called my black cherry earrings, and they were inspired by a friend of mine who is super all-American girl, kind of retro, but she's also very edgy, so I thought I'd make it all black. I made it super shiny with some resin. I got a black chain as the stem from a craft store, and I got some pleather and I made these little leaves. So I thought I'd show you how I made them and hopefully inspire you to make some of your own. So anyway, this is how I did it. Okay. So to begin, I got these wooden beads at the craft store. They were super cheap, and I'm going to use my Dremel to score a line from one hole to the other, and this is going to make like a little crease, like a cherry naturally has when they grow. So you could probably use a little jewelry saw or a file or anything, but I already have this Dremel. I invested in it. I would highly recommend it because I use it for all kinds of different things. And I have it at my very lowest settings, so I don't think it's too dangerous. I'm just going to hold my bead very tightly and score it from one side to the other. Not too deep, but you go around and eyeball it. You could draw this out first, but it's really not hard to do. And that's the first step. Perfect. So that was easy. Now I'm going to change attachments, and I have a little sanding tool that I'm going to use to make it so it's not like a very harsh edge. You want it to be like a softer edge. And you don't have to do too much. Just a little bit. Just a little bit on that side. I'm going to turn the bead around and do the other side. You can see how easy this is. And the great thing about this, since I'm going to be covering it with a very thick layer of resin, you really don't have to be too perfect. In fact, it's still a little rough looking, but that's all you really need to do. Now I'm going to change my attachments one more time. And this is like a little grinder attachment, but it has the kind of shape that I want, because on the top of the cherry, it's going to be a little indented on the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to use this in the hole right there. And just kind of go around, do this for a little while until it makes the shape that I'm looking for. And since I have this at the very lowest setting, I'm not too worried. It doesn't really hurt. But anyway, there we go. And then we get the other, kind of round it out a little bit. And then the other side. That is perfect. Like I said, you don't have to get too crazy with this. It doesn't have to look exactly perfect, because you won't be able to tell so much anyway after you cover it with the resin. The high, real thick resin that we're going to use is going to cover it and smooth it out. Really nice. So in the end, see, it just took that little bit of time. In the end, it's going to look like that. It's kind of the basic cherry shape. Okay, so then I'll go on to the next step. So my next step is to paint this wooden bead black and getting into the hole. So making sure it's all black. And I won't go through the whole thing, but I've done some already. Let's set this aside for now. And I'll show you, I already have some right here that are already black. And the next thing I'm going to do is add the chain. So I have some jump rings here, and I'm going to open my jump ring. And when you're opening the jump ring, never pull it apart. The proper way to open a jump ring is to twist it. Give it a little twist like that. Now it's open. I'm going to attach the end of my chain to the jump ring and then twist it back closed. Like that. If you pull it apart and try to put it back together, it'll never be quite tight enough, and the chain will come off. So I did that because these holes are very big. It's bigger than a regular bead. So I'm just gonna run the bead. Let me do this one, it's gonna be easier. Run the bead through it, and hopefully the jump ring will be big enough to make it stop and hang. Perfect. Now I have some resin here that I've already mixed, and I let it sit for quite a while because I want it to be nice and thick. And I'm just gonna kind of glue this into the bead so it doesn't move for the next step. And I'm gonna set that aside and let that dry. And I already have some other ones that I did that to earlier, and it's dry. It's not going to slip around or move or anything. But now I have the end of my jump ring that's very visible, and I don't want to see it. So I'm using some wire cutters. These are jewelry wire cutters that will cut the end of the wire so it's nice and flat. And I'm just going to cut this part off like that. Okay, so I just want to get as much of it off as possible, and that looks fine. So that is great. Now I have a little box here, I'll show it to you, with some string, and I'm going to use this for the next process, which is covering this with a very thick coat of resin so that it's nice and glossy. Now I want to show you my resin now. It's been sitting here for about 10 minutes or so, and it's still very, very loose. So I'm going to wait about another 10 minutes just so it's really, really thick. I don't want to dip it in there and then everything just runs off, and I want it to be a very thick layer. I have one here that I've already done, so I could show you. It's nice and thick and glossy and gorgeous. So that's what it's going to look like. So let me just wait a little while, and I'll come right back to it in just a second, and we'll cover these in glossy resin. Let me So I have let my resin thicken a little bit more. It's not super thick. You only get about 40 minutes working time with the resin before it starts to really harden. So I'm gonna start now because I want to get as many of these cherries as possible. I'm using paper clips to hold this, and then I'm gonna let it harden on a string in that little box that I made. And all I'm doing is I'm very carefully coating my black cherry with the resin. I want to get some of the resin into the hole itself without touching the chain. And I'm using a bamboo skewer to help me do that. You could use a paintbrush, but then you're going to ruin your paintbrush. And that's it. So a lot of it's going to drip off, but that's what what the box is for. So we'll drip off into the box and I'll hang it in there. And let me just do one more just for fun. And it is really kind of a fun process. So there we go. Make sure it's all submerged in there. Be very careful. You don't want your chain to touch the resin because then it won't be able to move freely. That's it. Now it's gonna look super cool and shiny. Let that all drip off. And I'll just keep going and going for those as much as possible until I run out of cherries or my resin starts to harden. So then we'll go on to the next step after that. Okay, so it has been about 5 minutes or so, and what I'm going to do is make sure there isn't too much excess dripping off the top. This one looks fine. Let's just check on this. Yeah, that one looks fine as well. If there is too much dripping off the end, it could dry like that and it'll kind of look like a drip of water. So I think it looks better without it. So what I'm gonna do is just get my bamboo skewer and kind of drag it on the bottom, and hopefully you could see some of the resin coming off, so all the excess doesn't dry and look strange. See here, this one's a little bit easier to see. You just get some of that off. And I'll do this every 5 minutes until it starts to dry enough where I feel confident there's not going to be too much of a drip. So here we go. Get a little bit off. Also, I'm looking for bubbles, which I don't really see any bubbles. And if there were, I would just get a little lighter and just, I don't have one with me, but I would just use a lighter to pop the bubble off and make sure it's nice and glossy. But these came out perfectly well. And that's probably because I let the resin sit for a while. When you let the resin sit for a long time, the bubbles kind of naturally disperse. So anyway, that is that. Again, this is what they look like after the process. This one's a dry one. It's completely dry, super glossy, very cute. So all of these steps are taking a little bit of a time, so I'm going to split this video into 2 parts. So in the next part, I will put these all together and we'll make the earrings. So thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day and get creative. This is it's so much fun and important to make things and make the world a little more of a beautiful place. So thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.